Good morning, Jackson, Mississippi, and all surrounding areas. You've tuned in to the free-range human show of choice, your daily dose of reality radio. It starts now. This is the Clay Edwards Show. I am, of course, Clay Edwards, and back again, like she never left. But maybe for the last time for a long time. We'll see how it shakes out. But Miss THERESE APEL is in the studio with us today.
That's right, guys. Sorry I've been so absentee, but life is getting crazy at Darkhorse Press.
Well, business is getting good, and that's how it rolls sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, look, when I started this and started the Auto Armor, I mean, I took a lot of time away from Auto Armor to do this.
Yeah. And
I just feel like this is my calling for now, until it's not. And I'm trying to juggle both, and I'm probably not giving either one the full attention they need trying to juggle both.
Right.
But that's how life goes sometimes.
Well, and that's kind of the thing that I came to is like when I look at right now, for the listeners that don't know, my dad is in the, kind of the stages of dementia where it's starting to really ramp up, and he's in North Carolina. We're moving him to Ohio actually this next week. And so I've been there almost every other week, or like every 2 weeks. And then, so Darkhorse is growing, and I need to take more of a role of someone who represents the company, who writes the big stories, that kind of thing, than doing little every day-to-day things. So long story short, we're making some hires, and we're going to be moving along, but every day for me, there's so many things. So right now I'm trying to pack so many things into a small spot. So as much as you hate to say it, but Clay, I know you understand, the thing that pays you is what you do first.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. No, y'all can't see Therese on the air here, but she takes a lot of selfies and does videos, so but if you hadn't seen, Therese has lost, 20 pounds?
Yeah.
You're looking great.
You too. Well, I mean, that's the thing.
Congratulations.
It's always good when you're trying to lose weight to have people around you that are also doing the same. And I've seen you and your journey, and I've got another friend that's working on it too. And just having that encouragement around has helped me stick to my diet and exercise plan too.
Well, you've got a good energy about you this morning.
Thank you.
You do.
Yeah.
You could tell you feel like you're going in the right direction, and you're happy with the direction you're going. So
yes, absolutely.
Makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a big difference when there's not bags under your eyes.
Now, there were earlier this morning.
Man, I did not sleep very good last night. I feel fine this morning. I ended up getting enough.
Yeah.
I woke up at one point, tossed and turned for what felt like an hour, and I was like, I want to look at my phone and see what time it is, because is it even worth going back to sleep?
Yeah, I hate that.
I was like, don't be any later than 4 a.m. Don't be any later than 4. It was 1:27. I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus.
Yes.
I can still get 4 more hours of sleep.
I had that happen last night, too, because the dogs woke up and went nuts about something. And I was like, no. And I knew it had to be like, 3 or 4. And it was 11. Oh.
Yeah.
It was great.
I know. I tell you what, I was talking with somebody else about this yesterday. There used to be a TV show that came on TNT for a couple of years. It was called Men of a Certain Age. It was about guys in their early to mid 40s, kind of getting to that point of approaching the midlife crisis point of their life.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have figured out as I'll be 45 in August is that when I wake up and I feel like I need to pee, just get up immediately and do it.
Yeah.
Don't try to fight it. Don't toss and turn. And my sleep has gotten tremendously better since I just quit fighting that, and I just jump up, use the bathroom, get back in bed as quick as possible, not prolong the inevitable.
Well, and interestingly, I have a friend, and I don't think he'd mind me mentioning his name, Lamont Brown over at Channel 16.
Mm-hmm.
We used to talk about, because we used to do early morning workouts together with the Paul Lacoste program, and I would talk about how I just wasn't sleeping. I'd wake up, I couldn't get back to sleep, I didn't know what to do, and that was before I was taking medicine. And he said, well, I'll tell you what I do, and it works. And I said, what? And he said, get up out of the bed and do push-ups. Then get back in bed and go to sleep. And I don't know how many he did, but it worked for him. I've never tried it, to be honest.
The last thing I want to do is get my heart rate up.
Yeah.
No, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But to each their own. Well, how are things go? You say your Darkhorse has hired a couple people. Things are growing over there. Mm-hmm. All is well. Yep.
And so the new hires should start August 1st. And at that point, you'll see a lot of I think, I don't want to say changes, because our mission is still the same. All the stuff we're doing will still be the same, but we'll have a lot more capacity to do different things. You know, I've got a saleswoman coming in, and I've got a digital director coming in, and it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, so we can get back to seeing more
in-depth
stuff that you do.
Yeah,
that you're loved for.
Yeah,
that's going to be great to see that. All right, so since the last time you were here, Therese, I started doing this thing where I go to Twitter. Mm-hmm. And I pull up the trending topics.
Oh boy!
And I'm just like, what's trending?
Right.
And I just kind of run through them.
Right.
And I don't cheat and look at it the night before. I just come in. I don't make any notes. You can verify there's nothing on there about what's trending. Not that you can read my handwriting if it was.
And my contacts are in the wrong eyes, and I can't get them switched out.
So I guess real quick, man, let me throw this out there. The Mac Hike of Flowwood, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram phone line is 601-879-0002. The Guns and Gear text line, 769-241-1944. One more time, 769-241-1944 is the Guns and Gear text line. So, Therese, the first thing here, and it has really blown up since yesterday, number one trend in all of Twitter is Hunter Biden. Now, I want to ask you something, a non-political way of asking you this, from a media standpoint, because that's what I railed on yesterday.
Yeah.
Was just how will the media cover this? And I know this isn't, you don't cover political media, so I think you can actually answer this fair and balanced.
Okay.
We know, based on past presidents and the way other presidents' families and stuff were treated and covered, that if this had been any other president's family, or whether it be Obama, a Bush, a Clinton, a Trump, anybody, if they had a crackhead son that had video of him smoking crack and banging hookers out on the internet, that would be the story. I mean, hair on fire in the newsroom, lead story. Do you think it is not being covered by the mainstream national media because they were so invested into Biden becoming president or getting Trump out of there? They hated Trump so much because of his war with them that they would have egg on their face. Or what do you think?
No, I think, and you asked for my absolute opinion.
Yeah,
I think
100%. Whether it's what I want to hear or not.
Yeah, as a media person, I don't care what the president's son is doing. I mean, like Jenna Bush or whoever it was, is seen drinking, or I can't remember what that was supposed to be about. I mean, there was, I think Ronald Reagan had a son who was a ballet dancer, and I think he got some publicity at that point. I just remember Mom and Dad bought me some Ronald Reagan punch-out dolls, that you can put the clothes on. Or
I had
whatever.
a cousin that was one of his Secret Service agents.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, I think that you look back through history, and there's been something that's popped up on the radar. Nothing to the size of Hunter Biden by any means, but while I don't know all the details because I don't watch political news, I know that Fox News is covering it because it's all my dad talks about. Mm-hmm. But when it comes down to it, it's not Joe Biden doing it. It's his son. And granted, that's a problem. But on the other hand, Hunter Biden's not the president. No. So when it comes down to it, it's like, I tend to look at situations as a journalist like, did this parent ask for this? Did this parent, maybe somewhere along the way they stumbled as a parent, but I think most parents will say that that's happened to them. So is this story helpful? Is it relevant? And is it just kind of trying to attack somebody regardless of, the relevance and helpfulness of the story?
Well, here's where I think where it's relevant. And obviously I'm not a Joe Biden or Hunter Biden fan. Mm-hmm. Where I think it's relevant past a parent with an addict son. Sure. Is that they're interwoven together into a lot of financial deals that only had because Joe Biden was president or vice president with China, with Ukraine, and these other things. And that's peeling the onion back a little more. But I think it's relevant because of that.
Well, and it's fair, though, at that point to say, yes, it is relevant because of that. It's also relevant when it's Donald Trump. He had a lot of business dealings with foreign entities that we don't necessarily always trust. And so you have to look at those two things and say, is one more relevant than the other? And the fact is, like, if you're being absolutely objective, no, they're both very important. So it's possible, but the difference being Donald Trump was the president. Hunter Biden is the president's son. Now, you also had Donald Trump Jr. People started to key in on that. Some of this is an evolution. You know, some of it, the precedent was set when we were talking about Donald Trump, and now, so we're looking at Hunter Biden. But is he getting the coverage he deserves? I think it's fair to say, in the way that we covered really stupid things like what's Cardi B wearing today, no, it should be covered a lot more. On the stage of what's happening in Ukraine and what's happening, around the world and different political issues we have here and poverty and et cetera ad nauseum. Is it that important? To me, as a journalist, no, that's not the story I'm going to key in on. And it's not because of any politics that I have. It's just kind of like, all right, so the president's kid's in trouble again,
Yeah, no, and that's why I wanted your opinion on it, because I knew that based on your opinion on politics, I just wanted from the newsroom, minutia of how that works kind of opinion, and that's what I got there. I appreciate that.
Sure.
And I guess one of the things where it grinds my gears more than it typically should, because I still have this core little sympathy for somebody dealing with addiction, and a parent dealing with a son with addiction, even though they're a train wreck of a family. But they just pulled a lot of our nation's oil reserves and sold it to a company that Hunter Biden is invested in overseas. It just makes me want to throw this pen across the room.
Yeah, well, and the fact is, I mean, let's be very fair here. As much as everybody made of Dick Cheney and Blackwater and all that, we should be looking at this the same way.
Absolutely. Sorry, I had to take a drink of water there.
Sure.
All right, look, let's take a break real quick. You're listening to The Clay Edwards Show with Therese Apel in studio with DarkHorsePressNow.com. I had a meeting yesterday I'm going to tell you guys about. You may be a little surprised. I was invited to go talk to Michael Guest, and I took up the opportunity because it's always better to take a seat at the table and be able to express your grievances than it is to sit outside and throw stones and to get nothing accomplished. So I'm going to tell you all about that on the other side of this break. We'll be right back on 103.9 WYAB.
America, you love your country, so it goes without saying that you also love your ride. And Auto Armor in Flowood wants to help you make that ride shine. Auto Armor in Flowood is Central Mississippi's premier automotive detail and ceramic coating shop, servicing any type of vehicle, including ATVs, boats, and more. Need just a quick detail or paint correction? Auto Armor can make it happen. But if you're set to hit the road in a blaze of glory while flying the old red, white, and blue, Auto Armor should be your first and last call to give your ride a full ceramic coating. Auto Armor is locally owned and operated by the loud and proud American patriot Clay Edwards. Auto Armor also proudly backs the blue, all military and first responders. So don't forget to ask for your discount. Call 601-260-0858. 601-260-0858. Or stop in today, fellow Americans. Auto Armor is located at 4394 Mangum Drive in Flowood. Online at AutoArmorMS.com. Auto Armor, unapologetically American.
Back into the Clay Edwards Show. This segment's going to be brought to you by the Raymond Farmers Market, located right out there in Raymond, Mississippi at 205 Hines Boulevard. Look, there's only about 2 streets in all of Raymond.
Yeah.
You can find it. It's right across from the football stadium, basically. If you pass the football stadium, it's right there, depending on what direction you're coming from. If you're coming from 18, past the football stadium, it's right there on the right as the 4 lanes turn to 2. Can't miss it.
I love farmers markets.
I do too. I almost stopped by Berries on 80 yesterday to get some tomatoes because it's just right by the house.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't feel like getting out of the car. And then I got home, I saw on Facebook where they were giving away free Smith County watermelons.
Oh, man.
And we're going to talk about that too here in a minute. But
yes.
If you're looking for lunch or dinner, Raymond Farmers Market, if you're out there in the Clinton area, or heck, if you ain't got nothing to do, just get in the car and make a road trip out to Raymond.
Mm-hmm.
And they got the full menu. You got burgers, sandwiches, fresh made sides from scratch. That means real potatoes that they cut. And I'm doing the motion here doing the potato cutter motion. If you ever worked in a restaurant, you know what I mean. It's kind of like a can crusher.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if that was the potato cutter or if it was the smasher.
Yeah, either or. Man, they've got a 9-ounce ribeye steak sandwich. Now, I mean, I would be worthless the rest of the day.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Like, where do you carry that once you've eaten it?
but I'm game. I mean, YOLO.
Yeah.
And look, of course, you can order out the menu of lunch or dinner Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursday they have barbecue. Fridays they have fried catfish from Simmons Farms, locally sourced right out there in Yazoo City. And Saturday, this is the ribeye night. They got the 10-ounce filet, the 16-ounce ribeye, and of course the 3-pound tomahawk ribeye that's big enough to feed 3 people.
Wow, that's half a cow.
Therese, it comes out on a cutting board.
Oh my gosh.
That's how they serve it.
I really need to see this place.
I'll show you some pictures during the. I wish I could show
Good.
pictures on the radio, but you
know.
just need to go out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, meet Will and Holly McLeod. They're just great people, and family owned. The steaks are all locally sourced, grass fed, organic, all the good stuff. It's the high end, real deal quality meat. People who have gone out there from hearing it on the show have tagged me in all their pictures and just rave reviews about it. I don't want to mention other steakhouses by name, but one guy told me, he said, I'm holding it to a high standard. It's got to be at least as good as this other place that's been around forever. And I was like, man, I hope it is. I don't know. I haven't had a steak there yet. And I had not had a steak at the other place.
Yeah.
And he got out there, and he's a fireman in Jackson. And he was like, Clay, it's better than the other little place out there in nowhere, Mississippi. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You go in, you sit down at long tables together, and no knock on them. But when he said that it was better than that, I said, this is the real deal.
Yep.
This is the real deal. So look, check them out online, RaymondFarmersMarket.com, or just go on Facebook, Raymond Farmers Market. And if you get out there, take some pictures of your food, tag me in it. I'll share it on Facebook if you want me to, and enjoy.
And you mentioned just going, just you got nothing to do, just go over to Clinton. I did that the other night with a place in McGee. Now, have you ever eaten at Zips?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
So I love Zips, and I've only been there like 2 or 3 times. So the other day, I just packed up, and I was like, I'm going to McGee for dinner. And that's what you can do when you don't really have anybody to be accountable to. It was great. Doing things like that, little road trips where it's just – maybe a 45-minute drive over to Clinton from wherever you live in Rankin or Madison or whatever like that. But you know what? Do it.
It's like a local road trip.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You're still in the Tri-County area, but you can get a little time in the car. If you like to listen to podcasts, man, throw on whatever podcast you like, or WYAB.
Yeah.
And just roll and listen and enjoy. Kind of take. You get out on 18 or I like Clinton Raymond Road, like going from Clinton to Raymond. It's just like it's a back road, but not really to the middle of nowhere.
Well, and I think like for me, what I've figured out is things like that are important. Doing things like that because it's like a mini vacation. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you've got one of those crazy lives where you're rushing everywhere and you're constantly worried about what's going to happen next and you're planning and if your life is just hectic like that, which mine tends to be, then when I say I'm driving to XYZ, that's an hour away or that's whatever, there is literally nothing I can do until I get there, at which point I eat. And then I drive back. And that may chunk 3 hours out of my day. But on the other hand, it's like something I'm doing for me. And I think that things like that in today's world, the way it is, you've got to find those little de-stressors and you've got to do them for yourself. And so you have to eat. It makes sense to incorporate eating because at least that way it's not like in your mind maybe a wasted trip, I
mean, how many times have we gone down? I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I know I've jumped in the car, rode down to New Orleans for a day trip just to eat.
Yeah.
Or my buddy Kyle Bullock, before he died, we would jump in there. He loved Fogo de Chao in Memphis.
Yeah.
Is it the Fogo de Chao, the Brazilian steakhouse? I think that's the one they have in Memphis. And we would run up there, do that, and then you're just in a meat coma coming back home. But it was like a 6-hour road trip. I mean, it's 8 hours by the time you do it. It's a whole day deal.
Right.
But, man, what else were you going to do on a Saturday or something like that? So I love doing that kind of stuff. And, heck, all this talk about it, I may just be about it and ride out to Raymond for a late lunch today. All right. So, Therese, I'm a Michael Cassidy supporter. I supported Cassidy through the election, and I stand by that. But I won't say I was just anti Guest, but I told Michael this. I said my vote for Cassidy was, as much as it was for Cassidy, it was a protest vote because of how I thought you handled some things. So backstory, my friend Fred Shanks, he's also our representative out there in Brandon. He asked me, so, would you like to have a sit down and talk to Michael and be able to express your thoughts and feelings and your grievances? Mm-hmm. Nobody's trying to get you on the campaign or nothing like that. I mean, it's just like sit down and have a real conversation. And I'd never really met Michael Guest prior to that, other than a handshake here, handshake there, these Republican breakfast and lunch things and whatnot around town. And we sat down. And there were some other people there. I'm not going to speak for them, but I wasn't the only person in the room. And I just told him straight up, I said, here's how you lost a guy like me. Mm-hmm. I was like, because I'm probably blue-collar, kind of redneck dude that checks off a lot of boxes to be a Michael Guest voter.
Right.
And I said, this is. I'm saying it on the radio. I repeat it now. I felt like you don't connect well to blue collar. You're too polished with your advertising and campaigning. Wasn't personable. It just felt like very mid 2000s conservative politician stuff. Just very generic. Maybe that's the best way to put it. I was like, and I went to several of your things around town where your competitors, other candidates spoke. Every one of them mentioned the January 6th stuff, and you ignored it every time you got up there. And I took that personal. Mm-hmm. I was like, because that was a hot button issue for me. And I know why he voted the way he did. I get it. But it was an important thing to me because it's bigger than January 6th to me, because of coming off the summer of the Black Lives Matter stuff and nobody being punished for that. And then this January 6th stuff happens, and these guys are all sitting in jail. Some of them don't even have charges pressed yet. They can't get a court date, all that stuff. I was like, so it feels like as a conservative, an outspoken conservative nonetheless, that my freedom of speech is being taken away. My right to protest is being taken away. So I was explaining why January 6th meant so much to me. And he just straight up said, I got some bad advice. Mm-hmm. I was told to ignore it and not talk about it. And clearly that was not the route to go. And I respect him for saying that, because that ain't easy to say. It is not easy to say I was wrong. And he sat there and he listened to us for a solid 2 hours, took 3 pages of notes. I mean, I went through every grievance I had. If I've said it on the radio, I said it to him yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I respect him for inviting us in and sitting down and having a real conversation. This was not a political, how do you say it? It didn't feel staged. It wasn't a script. It was a real conversation with a real human being.
Yes.
And it was 4 of us in there. And we had good conversation back and forth about a multitude of things. And look, I'm not stomping for Michael Guest here, but I like to be transparent with people, and I don't want people to say, Clay had a secret meeting with Guest or something like anything crazy like that. But I just thought if you're gonna do this and you're gonna be in political discourse, you can't just stand outside and shout things and then get invited inside. Oh, well, let's sit down and talk about it and say no. I mean, you got to be a grown up and go sit down when you get the opportunity and say, okay, well, how can we come together? He's still my congressman for the next 2 years. I mean, unless the Democrat beats him in the upcoming, which is unlikely. But I mean, impossible, no, but unlikely. So, all right, well, he's my congressman. He represents me in Washington. Mm-hmm. How do I play that to benefit me and people that are important to me? So
sure.
That's why I did it.
Well, and I love that he did that because, I worked with Michael so much when I was at the Clarion Ledger, and he was the district attorney over Madison and Rankin County. And so I kind of got to know him. I knew the side of him that wasn't the polished Washington guy, that was, I mean, he's always been very dignified, that's something he is. But, I saw him get angry about criminals, and I saw him, deal with these different things. And he would give us strong, like when you're a reporter, you love a strong quote. If somebody's going to say something like, we're coming after who did this and they're not going to, get away with it. That's the kind of thing you want. And that's who Michael was and I believe still is. But, it's like, I've seen it multiple times where a politician hits a certain level and has to morph is a good word, to kind of survive in the environment they're in. And I felt like I saw that a little bit with Michael. But the other thing, too, is his reaching out like that. I told you this story off air, but I'm going to tell it on air. When I was in Brookhaven, I got to know all these people. all these different people that ran for office and whatnot. And so when I left Brookhaven, the first thing I did was at election time, I wrote a summary of local elections in Lincoln County. And so I went through all the candidates on all these things, and I would say, like, this person, don't trust him. He's got no ethics. This person, whatever. And so when I got to Sally Doty, I, it's like I didn't know her. So I just said, Sally Doty, don't know her. And I got a phone call, and it was, hey, Therese, this is Sally Doty. I saw your blog. And I saw where you were commenting on all these people. And I saw that you said you don't know me, and I'd love to meet you. So can we go get coffee? And we went and had coffee, and I think we talked for about 2 hours. And I was like, you know what? I respect the heck out of that. Like, if I ever ran for office, that'd be one of the first things I did, is call the local media and be like, come have coffee with me. You know, like me if you want, don't like me if you want, but I don't want anything you're doing to be because you don't know who I am,
No doubt. All right, well, we've got a call. I tell you what, Scott, stay on hold through the break. We're up against the break here. When we come back, Scott's on the Mac Hike and Flowwood phone line. You're listening to the Clay Edwards Show with Therese Apel of DarkHorsePressNow.com, and we'll be right back. Breaking rules when necessary. Welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. We're joined live in the studio by Therese Apel with DarkHorsePressNow.com. This will be Therese's last show with us for a while as Dark Horse Press gets busier and busier. She'll be spending more time doing that, and we wish Therese all the best, and we thank her for the months and over a year of coming out here and doing these shows.
And it's been a blast.
It has. I've learned a lot about how media works just talking with Therese on and off air, and we'll still, of course, be friends. So it ain't like she's going anywhere.
Well, and like I might come back if I've got like somebody that I think you want to, that you would want to interview, but I want to help.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know how I do that.
But look,
like, let me do this one.
I did the same. We had the same forever where I would just surprise Therese with guests. She wouldn't know who was going to be here. I'm like, oh, by the way, we got a cool guest. I think you'll like it. That was kind of by design because, I like spontaneity.
Yes.
More than over planning.
And that's the thing. So you say that, and it's funny because I've always loved chaos. Like, they called me the mistress of mayhem when all the stuff was going on, in Jackson. I was covering it every day, all the time. And so that was my thing, was that unpredictability, I guess. Now that I'm getting old, there is a part of me that's starting to be like, let me put things in categories. Let me organize. And it's like, who is this?
I like to live by the chaos theory, so to say. All right, man. Scott has stayed on hold on the Mac Hike and Flowwood phone line through the break. Hey, Scott, you're on there, brother.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Hey.
Yeah, I ate, actually my folks took me for my birthday back in June to the farmer's market there. Really great. And on top of all the other things you talked about, so the onion rings. Anytime you can find homemade onion rings, huge, massive.
Oh, they're great, man, and they got a good homemade comeback sauce too. All the sauces are homemade. Everything. I asked for some tartar sauce for the catfish, just thinking I just assumed it was coming out of a jar or something.
Yeah.
They made it from scratch really quick and brought it out to the table because it wasn't fish night that we ate there. It was like sample everything kind of deal for us. And they made the tartar sauce from scratch.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We took home a homemade apple pie from there as well. You can get pies and stuff like that.
We are talking about the Raymond Farmers Market for anybody just tuning in.
Yeah, and it was, you'll never, slap your mama. You'll never go to the Walmart bakery, and pick up any of that junk again. Not when you can get something like that.
People always say slap your mama for something that's really good. They won't take, I'd slap my mom over an order of McDonald's French fries. I'm kidding, Mom. She's listening.
Yeah.
Her coworkers are listening too, so shout out to them. All right, Scott, what you got, brother?
Yeah. Well, look, I heard your comments on your discussion with Michael Guest, and here are my takeaways, though. If he got bad advice and was told not to talk about the January 6th situation, look, number one, that indicates to me what I suspected all along. There is a disconnect between him and his district and the Corps, because that's important to us. It matters. And if you're not going to talk about it, especially on the campaign trail, there's a reason why. I raised 3 boys, all of them, through their teenage years. And I can tell you, and you and I both know because we were guilty of it, whenever you're talking about something that they've done wrong, you're like, son, do you understand why me and your mom, are talking about this? And okay, fine. Do we have to go? They don't want to talk about it anymore. They're like, all right, fine, whatever. Can we drop it? Because it's embarrassing, because they don't want to talk about it. They really haven't learned the lesson. They just want to put the awkwardness behind them, not address the situation. But you're a congressman, Representative Guest. Your job is to address those situations. And while in a vacuum, it may be that investigating January 6th is not necessarily a bad thing or the wrong thing. You know who the investigators are going to be. You know who this attorney general is. You know who's in charge of the House. You know it's going to be a witch hunt. That's your job, is to go ahead and know, hey, it's one thing to say, well, there's an arrest warrant out for you. You should go surrender yourself here in Rankin County. It's another thing to be somewhere in Mexico and go, the police are looking for you, dog. I mean, that's two different things. One of them's really not the same as the other. And this is not this January 6th is not, there was never going to be an investigation that was worthy of a vote in good conscience, unless you're in on the witch hunt or you're just ignorant to everything that's going on. You should have never supported anything like that. Matter of fact, you should be very vocal against it. And he just hadn't been. He hadn't been. And just to go, I just got some bad advice. Well, are you your own person, Michael, or is someone else? Are you a different kind of puppet than the one in the White House? I mean, explain that to me. I don't understand that. What are your convictions is what we're asking, not what are you told, you're supposed to talk about. It still comes down to that. I mean, he's got reasons why he's done what he's done, but those don't excuse it.
Well, I think that one thing we have to look at, though, Scott, is the Republican side, the more conservative Republican side is saying this is a witch hunt. This is, whatever. There is a middle ground that neither side wants to admit, and that's where objectivity lies. And that said, to say, well, he didn't X, Y, Z, and he's got however many thousands of voters to please. The fact is, there is no politician out there that's going to please all his voters. And if he does, he's not a good politician. And so I would say this, no matter if we're talking about a Republican candidate or a Democratic candidate, to me, I wouldn't have addressed it either. Not as such. I probably would have found a way to talk about it. But when you look at it, you're not going to please anybody with what you say, because there's a good contingency of Republicans who say January 6th should have never happened. So that's the thing. He's stuck in.
Where in the God's green earth is Ray Epps? That's the question. We all know that it was instigated. It was a false flag. We've seen the video. Ted Cruz put it up in committee. We know it happened. Yeah, I want it investigated too. And that's in the middle ground is find where the truth is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could. That's my problem. Is I could have easily been there myself. I could have easily been just as guilty of just roaming in, being one of the last 200 or 300 people, not one of the first 200 or 300.
Well, that was one of the main things I brought up to him. I said those words just about verbatim.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Again, I'm not talking about pleasing everybody. You're not. I'm talking about his core that, like Clay said, voted for Cassidy, but as much as they were voting against Guest. That's the mistake that he's made. And he just hasn't addressed, and he's not going to have to now, because now he's running against a Democrat. I mean, he's not running against anybody who cares about January 6th or is going to bring it up or debate him or anything like that. Nobody's going to touch it. It's a dead issue now. He's in for another 2 years. He's sliding in, so he doesn't have to talk about it.
Yeah, and with that said, the meeting wasn't as much about sour grapes over the campaign as much as it was he's my congressman for the next 2 years at minimum. What can he do to satisfy me as a voter, and not just me, but people in general, like, people like me. It's like what are my hot button issues that he can work on? It was that kind of deal. But we did obviously get into some of the reasons why I went the other way.
Well, and so essentially what he did then was have a meeting to figure out how to bridge the gap. We talk about whether or not there's a disconnect. He's trying to find, like, okay, where's the disconnect, and let's fix it. Yeah,
and there were some things that were explained. I mean, look, I don't pretend to know everything about how politics works. I mean, I've taken a real crash course the last 2 years, and so learning some things too, learning about the votes by proxy and why he refused to do votes by proxy, and how that ties back to, we can't ask them to vote by proxy and then enforce voting regulations here, in-person voting. So there were some other things that was like, once it was painted for me, it's like, okay, well, that makes sense too. I don't want to just sit here and pretend that it was this big confrontational, like, I'm gonna get gotcha moments and stuff like that, because that definitely wasn't not what it was about.
No, yeah, you're definitely there to listen. I understand your perspective. Yeah. You're not there to convince him of what you believe. You're there to explain, hey, here's kind of where I was and where my listeners have been. What say you? And and let him say his part.
Yeah.
But then the next question is, are we really convinced? Is he? We'll have to see. I mean, is he trying to bridge a gap and figure out that disconnect, or is he just looking for a little bit of appeasement so he doesn't have to spend quite so much campaign dollars in a primary next time around? We'll see.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And one of the good points that got brought up is that the proxy, and I'm going back to the proxy vote thing, because that really piqued my interest a good bit. And I didn't plan on even discussing it, but the proxy vote is a tool by the Democrats, so they don't actually have to be there, and they can just, Nancy Pelosi can just get them all on board, like, this is the way we're voting, without any negotiating or anything. So that was just really interesting to me to hear that side of it, and why he missed out on those votes, or why he protests not voting by proxy. So again, just one of the little things that we don't all necessarily look at from ground level, but I found very interesting. Scott?
That's one of the things Marjorie Taylor Greene has done. She's forced them to have to actually record every single vote. She makes it a point to physically be there and say, and make a point of order. And she said, no, we're going to get this on record. I want to know who voted. You're going to win the vote, but let's see how many Republicans are voting with you on this topic. That's, and how many Democrats are actually not voting with you. So that's one of the things she does, and I think they should be doing that. It's too easy to just move junk legislation through when, just the wave of a hand, and we're just going to assume we have, the yeas and the nays, don't have it. I mean, that's just, I'm tired of that kind of business as usual too.
Yep. Hey, Scott, in closing, before I take my break here, one of the other things that got brought up was the omnibus spending bills, and if the red wave crashes come November, they will get back to breaking up these spending bills some, and not just being omnibus spending bills. So if you're voting for military money, you're not voting for Planned Parenthood money. Just using that as an example. I know that technically that went away, but
did you guys discuss Ukraine at all?
Yeah, I told him straight up. I said, I'll never be somebody that supports giving Jackson, Mississippi a penny for water. I would write the check myself before I would send another penny to Ukraine while Jackson, Mississippi doesn't have sustainable running water. And he made notes of it, but didn't dive into it.
Yeah.
I got to take my break, brother. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, man.
Peace. All right, man. You're listening to The Clay Edwards Show. Therese Apel in studio. Phone lines are lit up. 601-879-0002 is the Matt Kike at Flowwood phone line, and we'll be right back. Show. We got about a minute and a half left in this hour, but thought we would come back and tell you guys about Guns and Gear.
I love Guns and Gear.
I know you do. Shout out to Hunter and his team, and we appreciate them stepping up and sponsoring the Guns and Gear text line here at the show, which that number is 769-241-1944. You can check out gunsandgearms.com and follow them on social media. They've always got a great deal of the day.
Oh, yeah.
Going on over there. And, again, home of no limit ammo. Mm-hmm. You go buy as much as you can afford.
And, when you spend any time in there, like those guys that work there, they're just so great. they're just so much fun, and they're funny, and they know exactly what they're talking about, which to me is, as a woman, I've gone into a lot of gun stores, and a lot of them talk to me like I don't know what I'm doing. And to be honest, I like guns, I like to shoot, but I don't know all the ins and outs. And these guys, I know I can trust what they're telling me,
They have guns and gear.
And gear.
I was talking about yesterday, it's like Guns N' Roses, but swap out roses with gear. But man, check them out. And again, gunsandgearms.com, located right there at 1716 Highway 51 North, right next to Little Willie's in that shopping center there.
Yep.
In Gluckstadt. I call that Gluckstadt. It may technically be Madison, but that's Gluckstadt to me.
I call it Gluckstadt.
All right, look, top of the hour news break coming up, and we'll be right back with Therese Apel in the studio. Peace. All right, Jackson, Mississippi, we are back for round 2, or should I say hour 2 of the Clay Edwards Show. This segment is going to be brought to you by Mack Hike Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Flowood, located right there at 4000 Lakeland Drive at Airport Road. You know where they're at. Been the Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram dealership for years and years and years, and it is Mack Hike now. So go see them, man. You can see my buddy Corey McDonald, Brendan, Parker, Hunter, or my good old buddy Abe Morse is doing finance over there now. So go see that crew. They got a great team of salespeople over there. I was one of the first people around here that tied in a lot of Facebook stuff when I was selling cars back in early 2011.
Yeah,
I really, coming from the nightclub promoter into things, I was like, well, I got all these friends on Facebook. How can I get them to buy cars from me? So I started doing all this stuff. So long story short, I really respect salespeople that grab a hold of social media and they do unique stuff. So I've started following some of these people that work over there at Mack Hike Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. I love saying the whole title.
I've noticed that.
And I've started following some of them on social media, and these folks like to have fun. Mm-hmm. They do innovative, cool stuff with social media, and I just respect that. And they seem very knowledgeable about their product. And I'll be honest, other than when I sold Toyota, I wasn't always the most product knowledgeable person, because if I was selling Ford, I just wasn't that into it, but when I sold Toyota, I loved Toyota.
Yeah.
So I knew a lot about it. But anyway, they seem to know a whole lot about their product. They do like walkarounds and stuff, video walkarounds and stuff. And I think you'll be very, very pleased with your experience over there. You can shop them online at mackhikecdjrf.com, or just go to Google or your browser of choice, type in Mack Hike Flowood. It'll pop right up, and just let them know that you heard it on the Clay Edwards Show.
Yep, and I bought my last 3 cars from there, and they were all fantastic.
Oh, that's good stuff right there.
Yep.
That is good stuff. All right, Therese, there's some stuff I want to get to, but we got somebody sitting on hold.
All right.
And so speaking of Mack Hike Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, on the phone line. Hey, caller, you're on there.
Hey, Clay.
Hey, brother, what's going on?
Oh, not much. Hey, I was watching press conference the other day in Jackson with 2 water people, and I remember in that movie they said they were waiting on a grant for to fix something in the water system. Now, they got $90 million from Siemens. They got a lot of money from Donald Trump's I may be wrong, but they got some money from the COVID money. They got a lot from the infrastructure package that Biden passed. Are they having to use all this, pay all the EPA fines that they had to pay for the sewer system down in South Jackson?
I read that, and Therese may know, but I read a story the other day that all that Siemens money went to unpaid water bills to float the system while they couldn't figure out the billing, and which they still haven't. But that money got. That's
correct. Therese, did they get any of the COVID money or any of the infrastructure money?
I wish I could tell you. That's not something I've looked deep into. It being something that everybody else is covering.
They got a bunch of money from the Rebuild America thing, whatever it was called, America Recovery Act money or whatever. They got a ton of money. I think Hinds County got somewhere around $100 million, if I remember correctly.
That's what I thought, and I figured the city of Jackson would probably just about close to that, if I wasn't mistaken.
Well, the Hinds County Board of Supervisors is going to blow $10 million putting together a community development coalition.
Clay, did you see them guys doing their press conference the other day, that same day?
The water press conference?
The same day or the next day, the guys got up there and they were with the Republic of New Africa. And they were talking about that woman that was involved in Emmett Till.
I did. I did a whole show about that I did a video Saturday on my YouTube channel about that. And then I did. I talked about it on the show a good bit yesterday. I didn't bring them up specifically, but their video is what spurred me.
There was the guy there that. What exactly did he mean? If the grand jury didn't convene it, then they would get a people's grand jury and do what they had to do.
Well, so here's what I was told over the weekend. I mentioned this yesterday, and I still haven't gone back and verified it. So take this with a grain of salt. I heard that the Black Panthers over there in North Carolina, where she's living at, was going from family member's house to family member's house, physically looking for her. What they plan on doing when they find her, I have no clue. But I was thinking about that on the way in this morning, how eerily similar that, whether you agree or not, how eerily similar that must have been to what the Klan did to Emmett Till.
It's exactly. They're basically a black KKK is all they are.
Yep. I mean, but you could also say
they get the pass to talk about. They'll get up there and they'll go find somebody and they'll have their own grand jury.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, if you and I said that, we would already be in jail. Red flags.
Oh.
Red flags.
Yeah, no joke.
Red flags.
Y'all have a great day.
You too. Bye. Hey, now, Therese, being fair and balanced as I am, I could say that is a bit of karma also.
Yeah, and I think
if you believe everything that's out there, I mean, which I don't see any reason why not to. It seems pretty confirmed. Yeah,
well, and that's the thing. So there is an arrest warrant for her out there that was never served. Mm-hmm. And I don't care which crime she committed. When there's an arrest warrant out there for you, it should have been served in a reasonable amount of time. And I'm not saying that because it's been so long, it shouldn't be. Like, what I'm saying is that somebody, I'm not even going to say dropped the ball. I think threw the ball years ago.
Intentionally buried the ball in the bottom of the courthouse.
So, I mean, a great injustice was done when she was not arrested. And now we're still dealing with that. But the problem is it's been left to fester. Had it been handled back then, this would be a story that we talked about because it was a sad story of racism and whatever, but it'd be done. Back then when they did this, and I don't even think anybody that did this is still alive, but if they are, I wish they could hear the sound of my voice saying, this is your fault. And if the Black Panthers hurt anybody, it's your fault. You know, I mean, it's their fault too. They shouldn't. But the point is, there is somebody back there in the Emmett Till case that said, I don't know what happened to that warrant.
Yeah.
And that's why we're where we are today.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. We talked about it on the show yesterday and online, and I asked the question, just threw it out there. Do you think that she should be arrested? Or should the warrant be served? Overwhelmingly, every single person said yes.
Absolutely.
When I was talking about it yesterday, I said, let's take race out of it. Let's just pretend Emmett Till was our family member. It doesn't, or our son, or it would have been our great grandfather, or whatever the case may be. Let's pretend that was the case, and everybody still overwhelmingly said yes. Mm-hmm. So,
well, and I think that's the thing. It should be served. It absolutely should, and we should let a jury decide. That's the problem here, is that everybody wants to take it into their own hands. Everybody wants it to be about what they think it should be, when really we should have absolutely, like I said back then, let it go to a jury. And if the jury decides now that she's too old, that she gets a slap on the wrist, that is the justice system speaking. If they decide to throw the book at her, that's a justice system speaking. That's why we have it in place.
No, I agree. There was a part of me that said, well, is it worth ripping the Band-Aid of racism back off and having to go through a show trial and all that stuff? Again, does it do more harm than good outside of the closure it brings the family? But then at the end of the day, I came to the conclusion that closure for the family is the point of it, regardless of the scab being ripped off or not.
Well, and I think, Emmett Till, in that he was a 14-year-old kid who apparently didn't actually whistle at this woman, and then she goes and stirs up all the men she knows who go and kill him. That's something that as a parent, and I'm not a parent, but, I assume if you've got a 14-year-old kid, you know how little boys act. So your first fear is, what if something like that could happen to my kid? I think Emmett Till is a wound for all of us because it never should have happened like it did. And in retrospect, we see all the pieces come together, and it's just a really evil act. And so, I think it's not just Emmett Till's family that needs closure. I think the state of Mississippi needs closure.
I agree. All right, we got a caller on the Matt Kike Flowwood phone line. Hey, caller, you're on there.
Hey, how you and Therese doing today, Clay?
Hey, Chris, we're doing good. How are you?
Oh, no, I'm fine. Hey, you can't whip a scab or something that ain't never healed.
That's true.
That's a good point.
That's very true.
That's a good point.
So, I mean, just think about it. This kid was taking out his family's home, had a shotgun shoved in his mouth, and they were killed because they claimed that he whistled a woman. What they do? But I know how it was back then. You couldn't be my cousin and whistle a woman back then.
That's right.
So now they see the warrant. They can't say it's fake. They can't say, no, Fox can't say it's fake. It's made up. They didn't serve that warrant because they knew who she was. They weren't going to serve it. I'm surprised they didn't burn it, though. That's my thing. I mean, all this time you think they'll burn something like that.
You know, that is surprising that it was left there to eventually be discovered.
I think that was God.
That's almost like a movie script in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. I do. I mean, I tend to think that God moves like that sometimes.
Since they didn't, I mean, they got to serve. I mean, she's 88 and 108. I mean, they just served a warrant for the dude for being a Nazi. He's 100. So
yep.
So we might as well serve it and let it happen. But they got to serve it now. I mean, like I say, Mississippi don't have no statute of limitation about what she did.
Yeah, I agree.
No, yeah.
That's another reason they got served.
Murder and kidnapping doesn't have statute of limitations, right, Therese?
Yeah.
And what she said led to the kidnapping and murder of a kid.
Right, and she stood by while it happened. Like, that's the other thing. It's like
they tried to stop it or nothing. She didn't say, I misspoke, I misunderstood. No, it didn't happen. She said, hey, let it go, and it happened.
Well, we call that accessory. Now, Therese, tell me if I'm wrong. Like the beheadings that happened up in North Mississippi and all that, that was a whole group of people that ended up getting arrested.
Yep.
Surely there was going to be some quote-unquote innocent bystanders that didn't physically kill him or physically cut their head off, whatever.
Right.
But they're charged with accessory to murder, or? Well,
it depends on the level of closeness. I think in this case she could be charged with murder because she incited it.
Yeah, and if she was physically there and part of the kidnapping, which I know the other two were found innocent and so they could never be tried again over double jeopardy. But
well, the other thing you're going to see is so when you think about a case like a drive-by, somebody's driving, somebody's in the back seat, somebody's in the front seat shooting the gun. Well, the guy in the back seat may get charged for murder too because he could have stopped it and he didn't, and that's what the case is with her.
Yeah, good point, Chris. Great phone call. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, y'all have a good one.
You too.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I mean, strictly from we love true crime stuff. I mean, just from a true crime and how this plays out, because you have a rare case where somebody's still alive, but you have the interesting case that the other people were found not guilty, even though we know the racism and the all-white jury and all that stuff that goes into play. But can you charge her with accessory to murder when the other two people were proven innocent, or do you just get her for the kidnapping?
See,
what's easier to prove? How does that work out from a legality standpoint?
Yeah, and that's tricky because, you can't I'm trying to find my words. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Take your time.
So they were found innocent, found not guilty. And the problem is in a flawed system. So on the one hand, they should have long ago, been taken to justice.
And they sold their story to a magazine and admitted to it later on.
Right.
So can that be used against her?
And that's the thing. Yes, I believe it could. And on the one hand, I feel like there should be a way to reopen it because of that on them, or find another charge or something like that. But in the end, yeah, she should be tried and found guilty, in my opinion, because we have all the evidence we need right here in history. It's not like it even needs to come out in the courtroom anymore.
Well, I mean, here's the one thing she won't get is a fair trial, because
true.
There's not a tainted jury pool, which everybody's aware.
Right.
I mean, she's not going to get a fair trial, like it, love it, or leave it. That's just being honest there.
The closest thing to a fair trial that she'll get is you'll have the people that say, I don't know, she's 88 years old, she deserves to die in peace. Then you'll have the ones that'll say, well, we are putting Nazi criminals in jail and she deserves to die in jail. That's going to be the fight that you're going to have in this case, I think.
Yeah, you would have to move it out of Mississippi.
Absolutely.
Too. All right, let's take a break real quick. Loving this conversation with THERESE APEL. We'll be right back on 103.9 WYAB.
America, you love your country, so it goes without saying that you also love your ride. And Auto Armor in Flowood wants to help you make that ride shine. Auto Armor in Flowood is Central Mississippi's premier automotive detail and ceramic coating shop, servicing any type of vehicle, including ATVs, boats, and more. Need just a quick detail or paint correction? Auto Armor can make it happen. But if you're set to hit the road in a blaze of glory while flying the old red, white, and blue, Auto Armor should be your first and last call to give your ride a full ceramic coating. Auto Armor is locally owned and operated by the loud and proud American patriot Clay Edwards. Auto Armor also proudly backs the blue, all military and first responders. So don't forget to ask for your discount. Call 601-260-0858. 601-260-0858. Or stop in today, fellow Americans. Auto Armor is located at 4394 Mangum Drive in Flowood. Online at AutoArmorMS.com. Auto Armor, unapologetically American.
Breaking rules when necessary. Welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. This segment is going to be brought to you by Lakeland Glass and Tint, where quality matters. Check them out online at lakelandglassandtint.com. If you need your home, car, or automobile windows tinted, your automobile windshield replaced, and they are also doing vehicle wraps too. All right, really, they'll wrap anything. If you got your logo, you want to get it put on wallpaper and put on a wall, they can do that. A counter in your restaurant, your business, whatever, give them a call, 601-946-1000. That's Lakeland Glass and Tint. Shout out to Jason and the team over there. All right, I'm joined in the studio by THERESE APEL, darkhorsepressnow.com. And we're having some really good conversation on this Emmett Till stuff. And I'd asked THERESE during the break, I said, what do you think it is about this Emmett Till story that separated it from so many of the other civil rights era deaths, and why, I don't mean this despairingly, but why this one didn't just go away and didn't just become a footnote in history, why it has lived on the way it has. Was it the fact that the mother that he wasn't from here maybe? Mm-hmm. And that the mother took the body back to a major city like Chicago for an open casket funeral that tens of thousands of people showed up for? Was it just a pure violence and gruesomeness of the crime and just every little thing involved, from the alleged catcalling and whistling of the white woman? But what was it about this case that has refused to die?
Well, I think you have to look at the hubris of the whole thing, because you've got 14-year-old kid. That's basically a child. Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't think that when you're 14, but you're a kid, you know. You've got she was 21 at the time, 21-year-old woman. I have a 20-year-old child, and I mean, she's still a child to me. Right. And you remember how dramatic you were at 21, and you remember how you wanted attention at 21, and how you'd tell people things so that they would stir up. And then you think about these men who didn't stop and say, come on, a 14-year-old, he whistled at you. There's nothing to that. Instead, they went and killed him in the worst possible ways they could think of.
Take it as a compliment and move on.
Right. And I was just saying that, working at the Clarion Ledger with Jerry Mitchell for so long, he, has devoted his life to knowing civil rights cases, and he can tell you almost daily who was killed some terrible way during the civil rights movement and prior to that. And so when we say, why did this one last? It's because there were so many in that era that were just terrible. But I think Emmett Till touched a lot of us because of the sheer humanity and the evil that combined in that moment. And the fact that Emmett Till was an innocent bystander.
Yeah, and I think the way that everything unfolded thereafter too, right?
Yeah.
With the two guys being found innocent, which that happened all the time, or not guilty, innocent, but found not guilty.
Not guilty, yeah.
And then them going and selling their story to a magazine.
Yeah.
And admitting to how they got away, they did it. Mm-hmm. Once they knew that Double Jeopardy couldn't get them. And then the fact the woman never died, and she moved on, and now you found this warrant because the family just refused to let it go away. And credit to the family. Maybe that's maybe that's the answer to my question. The family refused to let it go away.
Right. Well, and I think to the people who killed Emmett Till and to Carol Bryant, this was just an incidental. Emmett Till was just the black face in the room. And so to them, that's why it was dismissible. That's why she could move away and, whatever. That's why they could, be found not guilty and then go sell their story. To Emmett Till's family, I'm not a mom, but if someone, if I was and someone took my child, I would fight that battle till my death. And that's what she's done. And that's what the family has done. And I think it's kind of been a real catalyst for parts of the civil rights movement, too. Like, if you want to see how evil this crap was back then, look at Emmett Till. Like, that's the poster story for what's wrong with the civil rights. I mean, with what was going on during the civil rights era.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I ran across a story, and I should pull this up, but I ran across a story the other day about the youngest American ever put on death row and electrocuted. It was like a 14 or 15-year-old or 12-year-old black boy.
Oh, wow.
And I want to say it was in South Carolina. I'll get those details maybe between the next break. And I was like, that's got to be – there's actually movies made about it, and not like big Hollywood productions, but there's documentary-type C-list movies made about it. And you can Google it, and sure enough, I mean, this really happened. And it's like, man, that is just heartbreaking. And
what did he do? What did they? I don't know this story.
I'll have to pull it up. They alleged it was something he didn't do.
Sure.
They found out years down the road they exonerated him of the crime after he died.
Sure.
But it was the N-word did it. Let's kill him. Long story short, and putting myself in 1930s America or whatever, But sad, really sad.
Well, and when I was a teacher, when I was a junior high teacher, I used to teach To Kill a Mockingbird. Yes, I was about to say Time to Kill. And I still try to read it every year because I believe that book makes you a better person because it shows the fearlessness of Atticus Finch in trying to give this guy a fair trial. But it also shows the problems that white people had back then in just believing any story another white person told.
Yeah, Therese, I got the story here. His name was George Stinney. I'm just going to read this quick little blurb from Wikipedia. George Stinney was an African-American boy who at the age of 14 was wrongly convicted of in 1944 murdering two young girls, Betty June Brickner, age 11, and Mary Emma Timms at age 7 in his hometown of Akula, South Carolina. And he was found guilty and electrocuted.
See, there's a lot, and I'm saying this to everybody right now. I don't care what color your skin is. If you can look at somebody else and see nothing but the color of their skin and the characteristics that you ascribe to it, you have a heart problem.
Yeah,
it's you.
We've got a caller on the Matt Kike Flowwood phone line. Hey, caller, you're on there.
Hey, Clay, it's Ready Teddy. How you doing, Therese?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Teddy. Hey, turn your radio down, brother.
Oh, I'm on Bluetooth, but okay, hold on.
I think that's probably the issue.
All right, is this better?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Do we know what the warrant against Carol Bryant says, what the charge is?
Kidnapping.
Kidnapping?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know about kidnapping, but I was thinking that if it was, accessory after the fact, the statute of limitations would be expired. Are there not statute of limitations on kidnapping?
No, that was one of the things that got brought up is that the statute of limitations did not exist for that charge.
Well, then I, absolutely, it's, whatever the legal path is, I think should be followed through with, regardless of how anybody feels about it, and regardless of how old she is, and all of that. Justice is justice.
Agreed.
No matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And Emmett Till's family deserves that.
Agreed.
And so I was just, I'm all for whatever the law says, and if the law says there's no, statute of limitations, and they should move forward. I just don't understand what the holdup would be. I mean, it's like are they just trying to pause and wait until she dies so they don't have to deal with it?
Well, the Department of Justice closed the case a year or two ago. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to guess that's got something to do with it.
I'm sure that's part of the holdup, yeah.
So we'll see. But look, public outcry has proven to be a very, very important tool in these matters. So we'll see how it shakes out.
one other thing, the guys that were found not guilty, was that on state charges?
I'm sure, yeah.
So I guess the hate crimes obviously were not in place then, so that they couldn't be tried posthumously, federally, I guess, then.
That's a good point, but yeah, I guess not. If it wasn't a law then
Right.
on the books.
Yeah,
So-
and I think they wouldn't do it posthumously because that would be taxpayer dollars being spent for something that some people would consider a moot point. But
a show trial.
Right.
yeah.
I got you. All right, well, y'all have a good day. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Teddy.
Thanks, Teddy.
He said something that I had an immediate gut feeling about when he said, Emmett Till's family deserves justice. And the thought that came into my head is Emmett Till deserves justice. His memory, his spirit, his legacy. When you think about the human life that was lost and the person that it belonged to, he deserves the dignity of everyone saying, all right, we're not going to just drop this and say oh, sorry, that lady that got you killed, we're just going to let her go.
Yeah. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is hard, yeah.
Because I was just in here thinking about kind of a two-part thing. I'd asked about why the Emmett Till story never just went away. What kept it alive in the minds of people. Then I got to thinking about this George Stinney deal, and I was wondering, is the Emmett Till story bigger just in Mississippi, or is it as big nationally as it is here? Because we live in this bubble, but I know they just passed the national Emmett Till anti-lynching bill as part of made lynching a hate crime. But I wonder in South Carolina, is this their Emmett Till?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question.
Because I feel like how did we never hear about this?
Right.
And maybe other people knew about it and I just didn't. But I saw it as a meme on Facebook the other day, and I was like, "Is that real?" And I pulled it up, and it was real. Mm-hmm. So, Therese, we got a call. No, we don't. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Let's see here. All right. Hey, caller, you're on there.
Hey, Clay, this is Richard Lee Davis, man.
Hey, Richard Lee, what's up, brother?
What's going on? I just want to let y'all know y'all were talking about civil rights and all this stuff and race and looking at a person, talking about a person's skin, making you judge. Watch children, man.
Oh, man, no kidding.
Watch how kids act around other colors. Man, it doesn't bother them one bit.
Oh, yeah, before they've been tainted one direction or another?
Yeah.
Yeah, like being from Jackson, dude, we're so used to being around each other, it doesn't bother us. And that's actually, I've had people from the north call me, and they're like, well, how do you deal with race? I'm like, I don't know, man, because I've worked beside black, Mexican, Jews, Asians, everything, dude. Like, we're kind of a melting pot down here. But watch the babies. See what the babies do. And, they don't judge anything.
Well, I think that's why Jesus said anyone who leads them astray, deserves to... whatever he said. I was about to quote a Bible verse I don't remember. But, the point is, don't mess with the kids. They actually have the right perspective. They haven't been ruined yet.
They have it perfect. It's us that messes them up.
Oh, yeah.
Us, the jaded ones, that are already messed up from the world. But
yeah,
you have the right idea, man. Like, I get it. And I just want to call in and say, hey, and appreciate the show, Clay. You're awesome, dude. Love you as always, dude. I'll let y'all go.
Appreciate y'all all day. Have a blessing, brother.
All right, brother.
I want to mention this real quick before we go to break because I want to make sure we do it. Have you seen the video of the little black toddlers in Minnesota yesterday kicking and cussing out the cops?
No, I haven't seen that.
Talk about leading children astray.
Yeah.
We are radicalizing babies.
Yes.
All right, you listen to the Clay Edwards Show with Therese Apel. We'll be right back on 103.9 WYAB. Breaking rules when necessary. Welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. This segment is going to be brought to you by, how about the Mississippi Carters Association? They got a big race this weekend on the 16th, this Saturday, out at Buddy Butts Park. You can check them out online at Mississippi Carters Association on Facebook or misskarting.com. And, of course, check out driveyourline.com for all your high-performance carts, parts, and accessories. Our good friend, Miss Christy Kendall, will get you hooked up with, she can help you through the whole process of buying a cart, setting up the cart, and then go racing the cart. If you got a kid that wants to get into racing, I highly recommend it, man. It's such a healthy sport, and just a way to learn a lot about life in general. All right, so check them out online, misskarting.com or driveyourline.com, and make plans to go to the big race this Saturday out at Buddy Butts Park off Maddox Road in Jackson. Racing usually starts around noon, but you can confirm that by checking out their Facebook page. And I believe we have a caller on the Mac Hike of Flowwood phone line. Hey, you're on there?
Yeah. What I wanted to know was, what county is the warrant in?
LaFleur.
That lady.
LaFleur.
Okay, why isn't there any Mississippi law enforcement looking for these ladies? Or is there?
Don't know. I mean, my understanding is, as far as what I'm reading in the media, there isn't. But that doesn't mean there's not something going on. The police don't normally tell the world that they're executing a warrant. So we'll see.
Yeah, they usually don't let that out until it's done.
Yeah.
Okay, because, anybody else or a lot of people, black, white, when they go get people, what they call them, when they bring them back.
The U.S. Marshals, yeah.
Extradited or whatever the word is, they go find you. Like I think they went and found this guy named Napoleon Edwards in 3 days in Louisiana. They let the world know where he was.
Yep.
And where they went, and they got him, bringing them back. So I was wondering, why isn't there any Mississippi law enforcement or the U.S. Marshals trying to go get this lady?
Well, Thomas, I'm not 100% sure how it works. So if it's LaFleur County, so we mentioned earlier that the Department of Justice had taken this case over at some point and was running point on it. So I don't know if the warrant is still valid in LaFleur County, or if with the federal government taking it over a few years back and closing the case, would they be the one to execute it? I'm not sure how all that would work. We'd have to speak to somebody.
I don't know either. A lot of people just don't know how it's going down. And my other thing is,
but I think we all agree. We all agree it should go down.
Yes, it should.
Right. Okay. But my next thing I want to talk about is critical race theory. How do you guys feel that this Emmett Till case plays into critical race theory? Okay. I think the last time I talked to y'all, we were talking about critical race theory and things of that nature. And this is a prime example of critical race theory right here. Everybody want to talk about Emmett Till, black, white people. But then you don't want nobody to talk about. Then some people say, well, we don't support critical race theory. No, this is critical race theory right here, 101, right in your face. So it kind of goes against a lot of people that's against critical race theory. Or you have sympathy for Emmett Till, but you don't want to talk about black history and the lynchings and all that stuff to kids. No, kids need to know what happened to kids back in the days.
Now, hey, look,
kids. You got a lot of white kids that's missing from 78. They need to know what's happened to kids prior. You know what I mean? You don't know who kidnapped. Could have been a black person or a white person kidnapped some white kids. They're on the back of a milk carton. So don't try to silence the past. Then want to talk about the past. So that's what I want to know. How do you guys feel about critical race theory now with this Emmett Till stuff going on?
I'll tell you what, I'm going to answer that with you off the air because I don't want to argue with you about it. Therese, you want to say bye to Thomas on your last call?
Thomas, I love you.
I love you too, Therese.
All right. Bye, Thomas.
Bye.
I want to say this to what he said. Here's my thoughts. Teaching about history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is important.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't consider that critical race theory. Critical race theory is a whole other thing where they're teaching white kids to be ashamed of being white and to be ashamed of what their prior generations of white people did to African Americans. I don't agree with that. But if you want to teach them the factual history and let them decide if they're ashamed or not, that's fine. Let them make their own decision. That's my opinion on that particular stuff. I have no problem with the civil rights stuff being taught in schools, the history of here's what happened.
Absolutely, yeah.
But to try to develop a narrative in the minds of young kids and to have them write book reports and theses on how do you think this little black kid felt going through this? They shouldn't do that. And I know that to be a fact. That's something that happened here recently in an English class out in Madison. Took these civil rights photos and posted them on the wall in an English class, not a history class, not a civics class, in an English class, and said, put yourself in that time and write a story about how you think that made them feel.
Now, I can, as a former English teacher, I can see the thing for that. It's like you could do that with civil rights. You could do it with, now write a story about being the son of a wagoneer back in the Old West, that kind of thing, because it builds empathy and it builds the ability to see something from someone else's perspective. But I think what we're talking about is kind of what I said to Scott earlier. It needs to be factual, that there's a middle ground. It needs to be factual that we are all humans and we all have the same color blood and that we've all been through things. Now, as a race, obviously in America, the African Americans have been through a ton. And that's a story that needs to be told. But the thing is, in our universities and now in our schools, we're seeing on a lot of levels, not just when it comes to race relations, but also when it comes to religion and different things like that. We see a lot of editorializing.
Yes.
And that should never happen. We should, just like with the news, we should be giving our kids facts and let them decide how they feel about it. And yeah, I don't so much have a problem with what do you think it felt like for the kids that, lived during the civil rights era? I don't have a problem with that because, again, it teaches empathy. But I would want it to also extend to, what about, you could make it, what about the children of the people that traveled in the wagons during the old way?
Yeah.
Pick the different things as the history classes do in this era. Let the English teacher, let them write an essay. But I do feel like we just have to quit editorializing everything when it comes to teaching our young people, because coming into something with a mask on, with your eyes covered, never helps when real life hits.
What do you think? How young is too young to start teaching about the death and violence of the civil rights era? When do you think that should something more explicit content of that nature should be implemented into learning?
Well, and I'm just basing this on my experience as a junior high teacher. I taught To Kill a Mockingbird in 7th grade.
Yeah.
And I feel like it needs to go hand in hand with things like that. Like as they're getting older, they're starting to understand death. We don't need a 3rd grader to know that, all the things that happened to Emmett Till.
Middle school, junior high, high school.
I think the more they become self-aware and aware of the world around them beyond, I'm playing in the pool today, that kind of thing.
We're on the same page there. I don't need it in elementary schools.
Yeah.
Let's get into 8th, 9th grade.
Well, and plus, why do we want to hurt our kids? Let's let our kids stay kids as long as they can.
Yep.
Because in this world, we're turning them into grown-ups at 5.
Yep. I agree. Let's take a break real quick so we can come back with more than a minute or two. You're listening to The Clay Edwards Show with THERESE APEL. We'll be right back with our last segment of the day on 103.9 WYAB. Back into The Clay Edwards Show. This last segment of the day is going to be brought to you by Complete Exteriors Roofing and Gutters. Complete Exteriors Roofing and Gutters in Pearl wants to help you determine who to use when you're seeking roof repair or work on your gutters. You need to choose a qualified, certified company that has a local brick and mortar building, a company that has been in business longer than 2 years and offers a warranty. Complete Exteriors, they got a 4.9 Google review, and I say it all the time. When you've been in business for 16 years, that is dang near impossible if you're not the real deal.
That's right.
And they got a 4.9 Google review. They're the real deal. Great folks. And I tell you, they got that new solar shingle that you could beat with a hammer.
I mean, it's awesome.
And look, I know a lot of places got some storm damage Saturday night.
Yeah.
Or was it Saturday night? And so if you live out in that Castlewoods area and they knocked all them trees, that storm knocked all those trees down at the golf course, give them a call if you think you may have some roof damage. If your neighbor's got some roof damage, you probably
The other thing to know, and they can tell you this, is, sometimes you look up there and you don't see any roof damage because it goes on beneath the shingles.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys can go up there and see it. I mean, they're so expert, they can see stuff that nobody realizes is there until years later when your roof is leaking.
Yep.
So, it's worth checking in with them because they'll do that for free.
Very nice. And look, you can get them to come out and do a complimentary assessment by hitting them up at CompleteExteriorsMS.com. And hey, if you're active or retired military, you qualify for a $250 rebate on a new roofing system with their Roofs for Troops program.
Absolutely.
All right, Therese. It has been a fun year or so that you've been a co-pilot here on Tuesdays. I appreciate you. You've helped me grow into doing this and being able to carry on conversations. And I've learned a lot from you from a media perspective. And
same here.
How you interview people and all that stuff. So it's really been a pleasure to get to work with you. And, of course, we'll still see each other. We'll still be friends, and you're still welcome on anytime you want to come. But,
thank you.
But the consistent week in, week out has ran its course.
Well, and that said, it's like at least I'm leaving for a good reason, which is just growing. Like when there's so much in your life that, you have to cut out an hour on Tuesday or 2 hours on Tuesday morning. I'm excited about it.
It's a 4-hour commitment to get up,
true.
drive here, do 2 hours, and drive back. So it's a half a day for the most part, even though it starts way earlier.
Yeah.
So we're very happy for you, and I love to see independent media and independent creators winning.
Absolutely, same here.
So we always complain and moan about mainstream media and the narratives they push. Well, you've got independent media here that doesn't push a narrative, just tells the news. You people say you just want the news. Darkhorse Press now brings the news, and we bring the talk.
That's right.
Therese, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, Clay. Thank you.
Mike Madison up next. Podcast will be available shortly. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow at 7 a.m. as the Clay Edwards Show discusses all that is going on in and around the city of Jackson.
This concludes our broadcast day.
Right here on 103.9 WYAB.